time to call this meeting to order. Let's see here. We're missing a couple people. We're missing Councilor Moody and Councilor Schulte, but the rest of us are here. So that's our roll call. Move on to the open forum. Anyone have anything for open forum?
I don't.
No. I did get an email that talked about the replica fish houses down in the campground, saying that I guess they just said they want to know when the meetings are so they can discuss the possibility of, or like what happens with moving it or what its future is. So
The one in the park.
yeah, in the,
Yeah, so
in the campground.
in terms of email, so then I believe we all got the email about street cleaning, right?
Mhm.
So maybe not tonight, but I thought that was a very good point. Maybe we could plan something that maybe
Yeah, it
doesn't
probably
have to
wouldn't be
be-
a bad idea to kind of review how we view that.
communicate it.
Communicate, and also view the responsibility of the city to clean what stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus having it be a kind of a free-for-all.
Yeah.
So I think that'd probably be a good idea.
We have
Okay.
to put it on the agenda next time. The county engineer is also going to be here.
Well, look at that.
That's right, because that's the bike thing, right, that I had to miss.
Yes.
That-
Yeah, he's also going to talk about another thing, and we can add this to the list because the email came from somebody who lives on a county street, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
There we go.
You had mentioned, speaking of county, and those kind of joint meetings, and it was sort of like an aside, but you said they were also, county and city were talking a little bit about plowing. Were they doing some planning and thinking through, kind of regrouping from this past winter, thinking about the future?
Nope, not anything at that level of detail. It was about the overall agreement.
It's
the
the-
contract.
Yeah, the
Just the
contracts and
literal
the-
contract.
And how we do those agreements for service levels and exchange and things. Okay,
Okay.
anything else for open forum?
Okay.
No.
Actually, I do have something for open forum.
Yeah, come on up.
May I?
Tell us who you are.
I'm Richard Olson. I was heavily involved with the engineering and design of the first iteration of the Kitchigami Trail through town, which was designated as non-motorized. And it's currently being used for motorized, for snowmobiles, on the north side of Highway 61. And I don't know how that ever fell through the cracks on a city level, but it was a forbidden use for those funds. And it was built with those funds for pedestrians and bicycles only, non-motorized. And it seems to me that there's a problem right now about where the snowmobile should be, whether it's on the south side of the highway or on the north side of the highway. And it seems to me also that the pedestrians really need the north side of the highway from Johnson's east. The snowmobiles were never allowed there to begin with, and I believe that they shouldn't be allowed on the north side and to be tended to for pedestrians. That's all.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks, Richard. I do believe that this coming fall, there probably will be a discussion about that as well, so probably a good time to bring that up again.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I think we've heard that.
Yeah, I don't think that we ever came to
No, yeah.
well, we were considering one way, and then a bunch of people came in with comments saying that it should be the other way, and then we were like, well, we weren't committed to changing it either way. And so kind of left with the status quo, which was how this winter went. And
Yeah.
this winter being as tough of a winter as it was for snow, we got some complaints from people in the community about access to the post office and access to other businesses along the north side. So, so there's definitely people on both sides of that.
I always,
Look at the pros and
even
cons.
that original design concept caught me as well, and I thought, well, are they doing that because of the stoplight? Like that was a safe
Place to get
place.
across, yeah.
Because at
Yeah.
some point they needed to cross, so is
Mhm.
that viewed without thinking through the rest of the ramifications of doing that?
I think it also was, there was no other infrastructure on the south side at that point, and so having
Well, it was part of the whole, that was part of the conversation at the time we were planning that whole thing,
The
including.
Gitchigami?
No, the current, I'm not the original Gitchigami part, but when we were doing the city
Mm-hmm.
street
okay.
redo, that's when that first,
Right.
and I thought, okay, that's why they're doing it. But you're right, now that the sidewalk, but we knew that at the time they could have thought, I thought they stayed. Just thinking out loud, I assumed that was why they felt that was a safer place for them to cross as opposed to farther down.
Oh, yeah, clearly.
You
It's the
know
only
what I mean?
controlled intersection, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without thinking through the rest of
Well,
ramifications.
more conversation to have on that. Any last call for open forum? Hearing nothing, we'll close the open forum, move on to the consent agenda. Typical 3 items on the consent agenda: this meeting's agenda, previous meeting minutes, and the bills from our last, or since our last meeting. And also a 4th thing, the North House Folk School temporary liquor license for the Unplugged Festival they're doing this September. That one is, has very little change or no change from what we have seen in the past from them, thus the consent agenda. We can pull any of that for discussion if you'd like, otherwise I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Only question is, what fun fireworks is this?
Those are the.
Oh, the new one?
Fisherman's
What?
picnic.
The
Oh,
fisherman's
it's
picnic
Fisherman's
ones.
Picnic,
Oh, okay.
okay.
So, yes, you noticed our little purple sticky for the
Mhm.
invoice?
Yeah,
Okay,
All
Thank
right.
you.
any other questions or motions?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion, is there a second? Kind of weird when there's only 3 of us.
oh,
I didn't
That's your
say that on
cue.
purpose, but
I needed that. You did, so I'm seconding.
You're
that.
there you go,
Thank
motion
you.
and second. Any, I will do some moving around.
Yeah.
I'll carry my weight. Any further discussion for the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, move on to the next thing, the Bad Seed Food Truck. So, come on, if you want to talk, come on up. Otherwise, we're just going to run through your letter. So I think it's probably best.
Let's hear it.
All right, so
Come
we've
on.
got Christina Conroy here. She's of the Bad Seed Food Truck that you've seen around town, here, there, and everywhere. So this is a request to use some public land for your operations for next summer.
This
So-
summer,
Yeah, what's that? Sorry, this coming
and next summer probably too. so.
Okay, well, there we go. All right, so why don't you let us know what your vision is here, and we'll talk about, I mean, I don't know if there's been much of a precedent for this sort of thing, but
Yeah, I was trying to find
but we'll
something.
get, yeah, so let us know what your vision is, we'll talk about what we got.
Sure. So I would like to set up an Artist Point parking lot. Sort of at the beginning of the parking lot, there's like a green median,
Mhm.
and I did use that spot a few times last summer and during MMA weekend, and it was like not cumbersome to the incoming traffic, and it was sort of out of the way of the other businesses, but still had a lot of like tourist flow, so I was able to make a lot of sales. I'm not able to use Jill's backyard anymore just because she put in stairs, so my truck just simply doesn't fit back there. And I think that would be a really valuable service to the city of Grand Marais. I mean, not only do I put a lot of money back into the city by operating my food truck, I also employ 2 full-time employees that live here year-round, and they have their own families that their job with me helps support. And I provide a service to the tourists that come here because there just simply isn't enough places to eat, and they come here and spend tons and tons of money. And so by being able to like provide them with like food options, I think is a valuable service. I think also that's a good spot because then I'm not like in front of other restaurants or anything either. Even though there's plenty of business to go around for everyone, especially with the border opening back up now, it's gonna be even a bit busier season than last year probably. But that way, you know, I also feel like by having that spot, like not being parked in front of like a particular restaurant or anything, then maybe like other businesses won't feel like I'm kind of stepping on their toes, and I just think it's a really a good spot.
Excellent spots only have.
Boulder Park, Sydney's, so this is, we're drawing a diagram.
Yeah, do you want me to come over and show you?
So
Like,
there's, so
Yeah.
like over here,
Yeah.
there's this median here, and then there's a median down here. I think she's talking.
Pictures by the medians, okay.
Like, either by the median or on the median, right?
I think
Okay.
you were
So-
on it though, weren't you?
So, like, I-
Sydney's and the Boulder Park, and we always have some,
So,
bodies.
That's
yeah,
after-
so I
after
was
you enter.
parked, so here's like a little green part. Had my truck actually like parked right here.
Oh, so you were down,
In
not
a
on
parking
this front
spot?
one, you were down here.
Yeah, like closer to the lake, and, yeah, and so the truck wasn't in the way of other vehicles. I only actually took up one parking spot, and then people ordered on the grass, so there wasn't additional
Oh, I
parking.
see. So you're on the inside of
Yeah,
that.
and so then people weren't actually like all coming up and taking up multiple spots to order food either. They just came up on the grass, and I just only took up one parking spot. And I have a generator and everything, so I wouldn't need like access to electricity or use up like,
Utilities or anything like that.
yeah.
Well, I guess my biggest question is whether or not, and I'm gonna ask Mike this, because you've been around the longest, whether or not there's any precedent for this sort of thing. And other than, I would say, festival weekends, we bring in food trucks, or the Lions have brought in food trucks and things like that to be parked in,
Yeah.
like, Harbor Park. Have we done something like this in the past? I know that we've kind of avoided it because, like, the kettle corn truck and the hot dog truck and stuff like that and Crooked Spoon all park on their own property or park on private property, so they don't have to ask for permission to do something like this.
Right.
So is there some sort of precedent for doing something like this?
Mostly negative, like, this isn't the first time someone's asked the council for this permission, and typically the council said no.
For a food truck kind of thing, or?
For food trucks, yeah.
And what was the reasoning?
The two biggest reasons are that there's a lot of folks paying property taxes to operate their businesses downtown that don't appreciate the idea of someone not paying property taxes and getting to operate their business downtown. And then there's a lot of folks that would like to operate a food truck in town. And so how many are you gonna say yes to?
That's the thing that I was thinking about, nothing having to do with your food truck, but we've never thought this through. Like, we never thought through what the use of public land for food trucks or private business like that would look like. And that's the first thing that kind of raised a red flag for me, was that, like, I mean, novel idea, great idea, but we haven't thought through, like, how far we're gonna go with it, or if we're gonna let it happen, or, anything like that. Because I'm not saying something like this will happen, and I hate to be that, like, fatalistic thinker, to be like, oh, what do they say, taco truck on every corner, that kind of thing. Doesn't sound terrible.
No,
but,
it sounds great.
But still, it's I do think that if we're gonna allow this kind of a use, we need to think about what's the maximum use we can have, because we don't have that much public space. I mean,
Mhm.
to be true, and it is a pretty significant hurdle to have someone come to the council and ask for permission to do it. So I don't think people are gonna be banging down our doors to come and ask for permission, but it does open that door. To doing,
But-
yeah, I mean,
I think they might come bang down the door depending what we say,
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can look at that two ways, like, there's not that many food trucks owned by people that live in this county.
Sure.
I live in this county, I
Mhm.
put
Mhm.
money back in this county. I'm not like from out of town wanting to come use my food truck. I would be more than happy to pay my peddler's license and a vendor license, but a food truck is meant to be a mobile food unit.
Mhm.
And so I'm already paying like my food license, I'm already paying like all these fees, so maybe I don't per se pay property tax to be downtown, but I certainly pay for my truck to be there, so it's not
Mhm.
like I'm just operating for free at all, and I can certainly understand if people like from other counties or, wanna come up for festivals, like I've paid fees already for the festivals that I've booked for this summer. I paid,
Mhm.
my vendor fee or
Mhm.
whatnot. And if further down the line, other people wanna bring up a food truck for this and that, maybe charge them a vendor fee for whatever reason they're coming up here.
Yeah.
But, I don't want my future to like be put in the hands of like woulda, shoulda, coulda, maybe
Mhm.
might happen 5 years from now. hypothetical, I would ask that my livelihood for this season not be writing on like what potentially might happen in the distant future, like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
No,
does
I
make, it does
get what
totally
you're
make
saying.
sense.
Yeah.
Like, what we have to look at though too is we have to look at what, and I've already said this word like 3 times this meeting, like what the precedent for this is, and that's not to say like that, it's just saying that any decision that we make is gonna get pulled down the road anyway.
Sure.
And so that's something that we have to really try and think through every decision we make on the spot. And we haven't had much of a chance to do that. So let's say hypothetically, Mike, if we were gonna do this, we would issue a license, right? Like a license for use of public land? I mean, I don't even know what the mechanism would be for how
I'm
this
not
would
sure
work.
either. I mean, our vendor permit just requires the property owner's permission in order to grant it. And so whenever the property owner is you, we ask them to come here and get your permission.
Gotcha. So that's the language that
If,
we use.
if they're gonna take a specific spot that they expect to be able to set up and use, or maybe even leave the truck, we might need to do some kind of license for use of the property as well. I'd have to talk to Chris about that.
Chris, do you have any precedent on this from past dealings with other cities and things?
Yes, I do.
That sounds great.
These can be pretty controversial, actually. And it oftentimes stems from where the location of the food truck is in relation to other brick and mortar restaurants. And there's 2 ways that this is usually done. If you only have, 1 or 2 of these a year, they're usually done with a license agreement. The license agreement has specific requirements about having insurance, indemnifying the city for liability related to the operation on city property. That insurance usually has a commercial general liability policy of $1.5 million of annual aggregate coverage for any liability, and then of course that covers the city's tort liability under an indemnification obligation as well. Oftentimes, cities will have, if they're anticipating having more than 1 or 2 of these a year, they would look at adopting an ordinance that would regulate this. Winona is probably a good example. For a number of years, they would do these by license agreement, and what happened as the food truck industry took off more and more, they got a lot more recommendations, or a lot more requests, I should say, for food trucks in the city, and so ultimately they did away with the sort of individual license agreements and then passed an ordinance, and then that ordinance then had all the requirements that otherwise would typically have been included in a license agreement. So, again, you don't have really any precedent, or you don't really know what the impact going forward would be, but I think you've got to look at, if you allow a license agreement on city property, you may very well get other requests for that, and then how are you going to handle those? My recommendation would be that if we do an individual one, that it be a license agreement, and then if you get more, you would have to do similar license agreements. Again, you do regulate the streets and the parking lots that the city otherwise owns or has right-of-way for. You certainly can limit where the location of these food trucks would be, what the distance they are from brick and mortar restaurants. I mean, those were all issues that came up in other areas. And so those would be some of the things, I guess, that you would need to think about, I guess, if you decide to do it.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Well, my first thought is there is some planning and thinking to be done if we move forward. So it's not an immediate yes or no. I don't know what your time frames are. I think how soon you want it to be up, or know what your path forward was. But I don't see this as a quick fast turnaround. I don't mean months, but would need some thought behind it. You know, and I instantly think about the things we talked about before, along with our conversation the other week with the art colony.
Yeah,
And one of them was garbage.
yeah.
And I think of that right away, and that led to some conversation that I'm not really clear about who's taking care of their garbage at our current fur truck location, even though it's on private property.
Oh, you mean the Crooked Spoon?
Yes, I've had some input that is maybe not being handled the way I thought it was, or assumed. I'm gonna say assumed that I thought it was. And we, you know, just, I don't wanna go into detail, but I think that takes a little bit more thought for us right now to be thinking through in general, just because we're seeing more people out, eating out, not in a restaurant where then they take care of it immediately. You know, you take your food and you go wherever with it. Certainly, I don't know what that involves with any utilities that have to be lined up with this. Certainly the insurance, what Chris just mentioned.
Yep.
And I don't think this would be the very end of it, and it doesn't have to be a food truck. You could get a request for some other retail operation once we let our public streets be open for someone to want to use the, you know, public space to run a private business. And I totally go back to what you already pointed out, Mike. We already have a lot of people running their businesses and buying their property to do that. Not that I'm not sympathetic to what you're trying to accomplish, but broadening my view, we can't look at these things so narrow.
Well, I think we should maybe stick to the first level of what you're saying, which is that, like, we've never really thought about this. Like, this is something that, and I feel like we probably should have a whole council here to talk about this in more depth too. So, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that I take all my own garbage and recycling at the end of every close of my truck. That's what I did all last summer. I don't need any utilities. I have a generator, so I run off my own power.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And those are all gonna be considerations too, because like what Chris said, you know, there's a lot of things that we have power over, as far as like where we can limit and where we can allow and where we can do all this sort of stuff, and what mechanisms we use. Yeah, I think that we probably should put this on the next agenda, do some homework over the next couple of weeks, and then come back with a full council and have another discussion about it. I mean, that's what I would say, because then we give it the best chance to have the most information about it.
Absolutely.
Like right now, you know, a knee-jerk reaction and response to this is not going to be a fully thought-out one.
No.
So,
I understand that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. I do have a bit of a question. I was asked to have my food truck for this biking event, which is on the 27th, but because of the land, the lease agreement, is so fragile, he wasn't able to get permission for me to actually be on the property, but he wanted me to see if I could just be right on the street where like, not actually on the lot, because technically, because of the weird leasing agreement thing.
talking about down by Voyagers.
Yeah.
Oh,
but-
okay.
And I already asked Mike and if it would bother him if I was there, and he said no, because there's so many racers that Voyager would not be able to accommodate.
And that would be on the street and not in his little parking lot?
Yeah, it would be on the street right next to the parking lot.
On the north
Because
side?
Across the street where that grassy lot is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, in the
The-
lot?
Yeah, I can't technically, I guess, because the owner of that lot doesn't live in town or whatever.
Right.
And there's some kind of weird fragile, this is his language, not mine, like fragile lease agreement where the owner isn't sure if I would be, so he's just said no until he could investigate it further for maybe
Yeah.
next year, blah, blah, blah. So the person that is hosting the event asked, well, can you just have your truck like there on the street? And I said, yeah, let me ask permission, because I don't know how the vote was gonna go,
boy.
but.
There's a lot of kind of, not like,
Well, and they've had, I mean, couldn't you be in the Proms parking lot there? Because that's what we've seen before.
He's
right?
gonna have a pop-up, like a tent with
Mhm.
selling like pork sandwiches, that's what he said.
That whole parking
Yeah.
lot gets filled, Mike, when I helped last year, by the time they put in their other little tent, they have other little
Yeah, it
vendors
gets pretty
come,
busy
there's
in there.
people
But I remember right on
registering.
the corner there, was it the
Triple D's or whatever.
Triple D's or whatever it is? They were there. They were right on that. They were like, they had the tent, but then they were like right next to the tent.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
there-
think that
that's
space
a
is gonna
lot
be pretty full.
smaller.
And you
Yeah.
see how he's expanding his deck.
Yeah,
now,
you
so-
see the
Yeah.
deck that's going in?
I wouldn't be able to be in.
It'd be pretty tight.
It'd just be over
Are you
there.
talking about the level in this, you know, like if this is them in the street, so on the level part, you don't wanna be on the hillside,
Yeah,
right? You wanna be
yeah.
on the level?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And
I
so
don't
this-
remember us talking about the bike race at all this year.
Uh-uh.
Did I just forget that, or did they not come and ask for permission to use Third Avenue?
Ooh.
I thought they did.
So when did that happen? Because I don't remember that.
Oh, I thought it was on.
Yeah, I don't remember
the
that either,
agenda.
actually. He
Yeah.
usually, last year he came like.
Because last year they didn't use it. They did the race, started at the school, didn't come downtown, didn't come down the road.
Maybe they're
Right.
not coming down.
Maybe they aren't coming down.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just meeting
Well,
there after.
But they're asking you to set up by Voyager?
Well, that's where like, the
where
packet
the-
pickup and the party
Yeah,
is.
and that's where the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the idea of a food truck being associated with an event is a very common thing. But
Mhm.
typically, the event organizer comes, gets permission to use a piece of public property for the event, and part of their plan is they're gonna have some sort of vendor here or there.
Mhm.
Well,
But
he's
that hasn't
leased-
happened.
he's leasing that space.
Which
That's-
space?
The
The
part,
open lot next to,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the one, the overflow parking for Voyager.
Okay,
He's
oh,
gonna
okay.
need
So
the
he's
parking.
leasing that. He's got
Yes.
that agreement, but he can't
Yes.
get you in there.
yes, correct.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's a
Okay.
couple different layers here. This is getting exciting. So, we got, so the couple layers is we're talking about like a long-term agreement with the city for using public land for business, and then we're also talking about shorter-term use of property for an event.
But if I'm understanding you, it should come from the event organizer.
Well, that's
should
the way we've
come to
always
us.
done it.
It doesn't
For-
have to, it's not
Oh.
always the way we've done it, but it's the best way to do it when we have one point of contact and one insurance policy covering all the issues
Yeah.
Seems like a ball might have been dropped.
and all the things that Chris brought up are relevant to
Sorry.
this conversation too, for the race that's
Right,
2.5 weeks from now.
right.
Sounds-
So when is our next meeting? Our next meeting is the 20 what?
Well, they're
25th.
thinking when our next meeting is. Have you checked around with anyone else, like space you can lease? Like I just remember when
Yeah, and
my
that's
neighbor
another-
was over there.
I mean, that's another thing too. It's like I have to make money. So if my truck payment is already $1,500 a month, I'm not really gonna have $800 a month to then turn around and pay somebody to rent a very small piece of a lot. I have checked, and that's what people are asking me
Okay.
to pay a month.
So there,
Hmm.
but there are spaces.
There's
It's a
not really-
cost
no,
factor, or
it's part of it is a cost factor. Beth Kennedy doesn't have any lots available. I've asked her. There are a couple places where the owners don't live in town, and I haven't been able to really find any contact information for them. And then the one other lot I checked, they wanted me to pay $800 a month, and then when Beth Kennedy did have a lot that was like a third of a lot in between Joy and Company and where the Crooked Spoon is, she wanted $700 and something plus electric for that spot. So that is also a cost factor. Like I have to generate a profit, you know.
Mhm.
And I'll never be able to get my own lot or my own piece of land if I don't make any money ever. And it's just robbing Peter to pay Paul constantly.
Boy, that's a lot of things to think about with this one. I think we need to do some more thinking on this. There's too many moving parts for my brain right now. I think we need to sit down and think about each of these different scenarios that we're talking about. Like what's in the,
Like,
you
do
know,
we
how
want
do
to
we
have
work-
them to begin with?
How do we
And
do
if
it?
we
in the-
do,
Yeah. If
how
we
do we
want them in
wanna
the
do
first
it?
place, how would we do it if we wanted to do it?
Yeah.
What kind of controls are we gonna put in place for it? And then this event thing too kind of caught me unawares as well, because we've always just had that, it's always just kind of been a thing that, you know, like
Yeah.
when the Lions Club does their their thing,
Yep.
they've got vendors, they take care of it, and
Yeah,
they've
so
got the
Jeremy-
space, and they've got, yeah,
Yeah, somebody should reach out to Jeremy maybe and say like, hey,
I already sent him a message.
what's up?
Okay.
So, yeah, so sorry that we can't give you a better answer tonight, but I think that we need to do some more homework on this.
Okay, but
Yeah.
what about the 27th though? Because you guys won't meet before then, will you?
25th.
25th is when you'll meet next?
Mhm.
Okay.
So,
And then I
I'm
was-
anticipating there'll be some more conversation at that meeting.
Definitely. And then also just for, so I can kind of like have the full clear picture and be as informed as possible. I was trying to look onto the city's website as to
Mhm.
like what specific ordinances there were, like saying I could or could not have my food truck. And so I was just wondering if like, you could kind of point me into the right direction as to where I might be able to find those, and just, that way I can kind of like just be like fully educated myself
Mhm.
and, you know, be able to start.
He's
Yeah.
doing it right now, we're looking at it.
Well, and I think partly, that is what we're talking about, is that we have to hammer that out. We don't really, I mean, we must have some guidance, but not,
We have a
The kind of-
specific ordinance.
we have a specific ordinance.
Yeah.
We do, yeah, I just don't know where it is. You know where it is.
Well, I know where it was.
Well, who moved that?
Is it not a keyword searchable document?
Not quite yet,
Should-
but it's okay.
Oh, I thought it was.
Let's see, here we go. Peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants, it's chapter 111. It's on the city code, which is on the city's website, and you can just peruse it at your leisure.
What is
And if
it?
you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to talk to you also.
Yeah.
Chapter 111.
Chapter 111, easy to remember, 111. So, Chris, we might tap into you a little bit on this, in this conversation. I think we'll gather some more information.
I'll just read the quick,
Yeah.
most pointed part of it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
No permittee under this chapter shall have any exclusive right to any location in the public street, public parking lots, or public parks, nor shall any be permitted to stationary locations thereon, nor shall any be permitted to operate it in congested area where such operation might impede or inconvenience the public use of such streets without the permission of the council. So, there's that piece.
Okay.
And just, you asked about dates and knowing, like, so now you know when we're meeting again, but just to set expectations, I don't think we would have answers or solutions either.
Well, the
at
27th
our
could be
meeting.
covered by a different expectation.
Yeah.
If there was a,
That,
if that was governed by an event, then just like we do the downtown stuff, then.
The event, but her bigger
Yeah.
thing,
Or
Yeah.
bigger thing, yeah.
Our
Yeah.
bigger
That's something
thing we
we're gonna
won't
have
be
Yeah,
able to
the
answer
event
at
I
that
get.
point.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But that peddler thing is relatively specific.
And I do have one more question, actually.
Yeah.
So, like last summer, I know that you said that Ed had it on like a lawn, but he really didn't. He had it in front of that smoker, in front of Sydney's. Also, right where Ben Franklin parking lot is, was Gail's rock. She's right on the sidewalk, like sold her rock lamps. There was like another peddler that had a table right on that sidewalk where he sold like weird rock carving things and wood carving things. So what is the difference between them being allowed to set up right on the sidewalk and operate their business versus me in a parking lot running my food truck? Like, I guess I'm confused as to, I mean, if one person can use public land over the other, it's the same
Well,
concept.
Right. I think that's something we have to look at. I mean,
Sure, that's a good point.
And some of those things, like the peddler's permits and stuff like that, those are things that they're handled administratively. Like they don't come to the council for approval necessarily. I mean, I don't remember seeing them in the packet.
No, not everyone follows the law either.
Oh, there's that.
Uh-huh. There you go.
So there's, needless to say, definitely conversations to be had about that as well.
So that's a good point, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I had to, I know who exactly, I can envision it, and you're right, but what I can't envision right now is were they literally on the sidewalk, which I
They
think is
were.
what you're saying, or were they back on joins, so they were leasing private property?
They were on the sidewalk.
Sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah. And isn't there like some amount of that though? Because it seemed like for the musicians, it was like you could be in front of joints if joints said you could be, for instance.
No, Gail was like in front of the, if you come down that alleyway,
Mhm.
like right in front of the Crooked Spoon on the sidewalk was where Gail had her rock lamp thing. And then right next to that, a little further down by where, like, here's Ben Franklin parking lot, and then the sidewalk was the rock carving guy whose name eludes me now, probably
Right.
because we didn't conversate very much, but, because he doesn't live in this town, but,
I think they both had permits to operate in Jones's parking lot.
but
Okay.
it wasn't in Jones's
I
parking
mean,
lot.
do you really want to have the conversation about if someone else was breaking the law, I should be able to as well?
No, I'm not
I mean,
asking
maybe
you to
we
break the
can
law, I'm saying that other
move on.
peddlers have set up on the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Yeah,
all
it
summer
needs to be
long.
consistent.
So
Yeah.
if they can do, if they have permission to do it, I don't see
Yeah,
why
they
I
don't,
wouldn't.
no one has permission to do that.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's.
So that's
the-
a good point to
The
follow up
conversation
on.
is about consistency and awareness of it, really. And, yeah, and that's something that we've not really focused on too much. So,
But our specific ordinance at this point basically says it's not permitted unless we say so. Is that essentially it?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
it also says you can't really park in one spot and have that, like, expect that to be
Yeah.
your spot,
Unless you say so.
unless we say so.
That's right.
Okay. Wow, yeah, so, good things to
Next.
think about,
Next agenda, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
in terms of like giving, like the two options, you know, like actually having a set out ordinance, which I think we should be shooting for. But I think that that's gonna take more time than maybe coming up with an agreement that we could work with. I mean, maybe that's part of what we should be doing, is looking at, can we get an agreement together? Because an agreement we can get together and just roll with. Something that's actually gonna change our ordinance, I think that's something where that's gonna take a lot more time.
Yeah, and looking at the way that we deal with peddlers now and the number of peddlers we deal with now, as Chris was saying, you know, if you're just doing a couple of them,
That's not
then
a
that
big deal.
license agreement thing is,
Yeah.
it's flexible, it's one-off, you know,
Yeah,
we can set some rough guidelines for it to say, like, this is the kind of business we want, this is the kind of business we don't, you know, I mean,
yeah,
but we have to have reasons to justify all that too. So it gets to be a bigger deal as
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
move into it, but,
Can't make decisions in a micro. It happens too
Right.
often.
mhm.
You have to kind of think what it really means.
right.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
all that to be said, I think we need to do some more homework. If you have any more information to provide for us or anything like that, Christina, or any more considerations for your business, definitely do so. And we'll work on gathering some more information for the next conversation at the next meeting, and I think that's what we're gonna have to do.
And that's gonna, yeah, totally understand, that's May 25th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, 6:30.
Will I need to, write anything up more formally, like, prior to that, or do you just want me to, like, bring information with me?
If you have any more information, you know,
Prior?
bring it to Mike so it can be put in the
Sure.
packet. Otherwise, you know, we can always just put this into the next packet too, so that we understand kind of what
Yeah.
you're asking for. But yeah, whatever we can do to,
And I think it might be nice to have from Chris just some ideas of like, what are other agreements that, like Winona
Samples.
started
Yeah.
with, you know, what did they start with? And
yeah.
it
some
might be nice
models.
to just have some model to look at, to see like, oh, does this fit us or not?
And just a little like brainstorming, I don't know if this makes sense, is there any other not publicly, that's not the
Private?
word I want. Well, in a sense, private land. Well, I'm
Okay.
thinking about like just literally right across the street here, I don't know if that one makes sense, but you know,
In the
like, you know,
chunk
that-
between Valley's blacksmith
right,
shop
or
and
is
the
there
metal shed.
something over by the museum where they, you know, I guess it's privately held land, I'm just thinking in the sense it's held by a nonprofit, but is there any other business owner that has extra space? Maybe they're not in the food world, but they have space and they would be fine with you. And, you know, you've gotten one person's idea of rent, maybe you get somebody else's and get a different number. Just
Yeah.
trying to think of other possibilities.
Just in the short
You know, maybe McDonald might be interested. He sits on that empty space. It's just a matter, like you said, I'm not here and it's a lot of details. Maybe I don't want to be bothered with it right now, but maybe if some of the details would work out, maybe he'd be like, okay, great, I'm not doing anything else with that space. So
We're
it's
the
just,
new owners of the Giants parking lot.
Yeah, because maybe they're not doing, I don't know what their building scheme is for the immediate. I mean, I guess I could just spend in the just keep
Oh, I am.
poking around.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
have already.
I definitely am. And like, so it's not that I haven't been trying to find a space or anything. I mean, there's a lot of factors that come into that. Like, sure, maybe I could like rent the spot behind the marathon, but who's gonna go there? I mean, like, who's gonna see my food truck there? I mean, part of this also has to be like the visibility factor, so it would really need to be like a lot that's visible to traffic, to people. It just, otherwise I'm just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's do some homework. Let's bring it back up next week and or next meeting, 2 weeks, and then we'll plan on seeing you again, and then we'll have more information and we'll be able to talk about it a little bit smarter. So cool. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing up
Thanks
all
for
the
listening.
points.
Have a great
Yeah.
night.
Yep, thanks, Christina.
All right. So I will come and sit down with you, Mike, sometime, and we can hash out some stuff on that. I think
Are you
that,
still meeting with the Downtown Business Council?
That's me. I missed their meeting today. I had another meeting, but.
yeah, it might be fun. Might be good to talk.
Or
to them about
yesterday,
that.
I'm sorry, Tuesday. I had an event. But anyways, yeah.
Maybe send out an email. I wonder if they can do that. Who's sending out those emails? Is that?
That's
still-
the chamber is really the one organizing those, and I think we're on an every other week schedule now. Pardon?
Once a month.
Once a month now? Okay.
Second Tuesday.
So we just had it, so it wouldn't be for a month out.
Right.
Not that maybe we couldn't somehow elicit some commentary or thought,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a meeting to do
You
that.
do an
Yeah.
email conversation about it.
Good idea to get everybody's.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll see
Okay.
if we can get an email sent out on that, maybe.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to
Thanks, Tracy.
help engage the.
Yeah, it's good to get
business
the
owners.
idea and the feel on
And
it.
who knows, maybe they'll have some ideas,
Yeah.
you know?
Some spaces that are available.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Like food. We
Yeah,
need
food is good.
Mhm.
So there might be some trumping thing.
Yeah.
Not like, did I say
You guys, just clean it up back there.
You're such a comedian.
So, yeah, I think that'll
Okay.
help stuff move around too, so I think that's a
Yep.
decent,
I'll
a
do
decent way
that.
to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Do you guys pull yourself together now? Because now you're coming up, like now you're up on the agenda. So if you want to come up, we can talk about your stuff now.
For reals.
For real now.
You take that shit.
All right, so next thing on the agenda, so the CEC, Creative Economy Collaborative, has been working for quite some time on design and bid proposals for the kiosks, for the interpretive kiosks that are going to go around the community. They had a budget to work with. They got some suggestions or some proposals back. Have one that they would like us to pick, and I'll let you guys go through and tell us the details of all that.
Sure.
Let's see what we've got here.
So backing up a little bit, the original design, which was about 4 years old, by CJ, this design
Mhm.
right there, that's what we were looking for pricing on.
3-dimensional.
Yes. And we got 4 good, solid bids, I think. 2 of them were a lot lower than the other 2, and they were both local. So we considered them carefully, and with a couple of exceptions. First of all, the one from Paul Nordland was complete as it was designed. It was to the specification. The next lowest bidder was from Jim Santarud and Greg Mueller, and their bid for the original design was slightly lower, but there was a steel question. They had used a different gauge steel, and we didn't feel comfortable with that, so it would probably take another couple $1,000s to go to the correct steel.
Mm.
And so that would put them above Paul Nordland. There was some discussion too, they also offered an alternative wood in their bid, and that was for white oak, which is a sustainable and more locally sourced wood.
Then eBay, yeah.
Than eBay, yes. And we were looking we were open to hearing alternatives to especially the eBay product. And I had many long conversations with Paul Nordland about this, about species, and we can go over that a little bit more later. But, we had long conversations too about the abilities of Paul Nordland, having been trained and schooled in university level, doing the sign business. And he's got a lot of other capabilities that he can bring to the table for us as well, like graphic design and production of the actual informational panels, the content that this is a delivery system for. And he very thoughtfully processed all kinds of value engineering, if you will. And so we all feel very confident in his abilities. And we also, Paul and I have also recently talked about different woods that we can talk about doing. He thinks there's negligible difference between Ipe and this black locust product, which is readily available.
And
They're
semi-local.
semi-local.
Some around.
Yeah, but it's not from the rainforest. There's also a relatively new product out there that is an engineered wood. It's pressure treated with sustainable products and then kiln dried, and it's very stable. It's called Kebony, and it's a beautiful wood, and it looks an awful lot like Ipe. It is an upgrade. So as we proceed, I'm sure that Mike would be in charge of whatever contract was out there, and we'd probably have those conversations with, if it's Paul that you approve, that we would be looking at those options.
Well, I would think that it'd probably be a good idea to, yeah, I don't know, I go both ways on that. Because I think it would make sense for the council to be a part of those conversations for any kind of change order that would be expected. But also, that's kind of why we like having the CEC involved.
Sure, of course.
So
Mike has sort of asked me to be to help him check shop drawings instead of going out and hiring it done, like with CJ or something else.
Yeah.
So I've offered my help on that level. So there's always going to be a link between Mike and the CEC, whether through
Oh, yeah,
you or
totally.
And yeah, if you need to approve any of these changes, I'm happy with that.
Well, and so what we're looking at right now is we're looking at approving a proposal from Paul Nordland here for a total of $27,154. Which includes, does that include the ePay?
It does include the ePay.
So that does include the ePay. So
Yes.
so sourcing other types of woods could potentially bring the
It
cost down.
potentially would, yes.
And
But he says he doesn't think it will.
Yeah,
Probably won't.
these days, I gotta tell you, the price of things is changing every day. So I'm just glad that we've got some solid bids in hand, such that procurement can actually begin. And, I mean, seriously, the prices are going up every day.
Right. Sure. Well, with that consideration, I would feel relatively comfortable approving the price, like approving the bid for the price, and then moving forward with any conversations about the materials as we go. Expecting that what we're going to be getting is something along the lines of a hardy, hardwood, well weathering, minimum maintenance,
Yes, that's
structure.
the goal.
Like that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's why you pay.
That's why.
That's why ePay was
ePay is definitely
specified.
fit that
Yeah.
criteria, yes. Any thoughts or conversation from the council here on this?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, you go. I got nothing.
Oh.
He was saying he has nothing.
Oh,
so.
okay. I have one question, because of course I was a little confused the last time we talked about this. Remember that one? And I thought I understood the purpose of the kiosks as far as the information, because that conversation, we had a request, remember, we had input that they wanted another purpose to it. In 2 sentences or one, tell me what again is the purpose of the information, or what is the information that's going to be on the kiosks?
On each kiosk, there will be a map to locate you. right?
Okay.
In each kiosk, there will likely be educational materials about history, about integrating Ojibwa early life here. Basically,
Something to tell the story.
it's the story, and then there'll be something about
Hasn't been
the
done before.
location, geography, the lake.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and instead of, we've had this conversation as well, you know, there are some people who'd like to be able to tack up things and have like
Yeah, the purpose.
billboards and stuff, but we need these to be as maintenance-free as possible, I think. And so we're incorporating QR codes that basically directs people to upcoming events and what restaurants
it.
are open when, blah, 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 blah. Everybody carries a phone with them.
Okay, just before I make any more, I just want to
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah,
Sure, to understand.
educational, interpretive,
Devin.
and informational, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. And wayfinding in some fashion.
Okay. I do have a question, I guess. What, and maybe you feel like you already answered this, because you did give examples of what Paul was bringing to the table. And I don't see as much of a picture as that because it's just aligning to your original design concept.
If you go to the
Then-
two renderings that one of the other vendors did, these are probably the best renders that we've got of the way it'll look. Only it will contain maybe more information than.
I don't even
which-
think we included those.
Pardon?
Those were from
Oh, well,
the
here.
$50,000.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so this was from the top bidder, I guess, but they did some really nice renderings.
Yes.
We'll take the renderings, thank you.
Give one of them to Kelly.
Oh, okay. Did you guys want to look again? You can
Oh,
probably
they're
remember.
both directions, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
I thought
okay.
they looked both like it was the same side of it.
You can keep those if you want.
Do you want to look at these, Kelly?
Okay, let me get them later.
Okay. All right, so kind of, we're just, yeah. So my first reaction actually is I really like this other one a whole lot more. But I wanted to make,
Picture it with content, and imagine the content disappearing in the confusion of the design
We were concerned about safety.
and safety.
That would be a
A lot
great piece of
people
public
react
art
way.
that we've
A lot of
got.
people, but that's what I thought.
Yeah,
That's
so we've
another
got these
concept.
pedestals all around town.
Public
That'd be a
art.
great place
It's,
for something like that.
it's strange because I thought exactly what you thought, Tracy. And for me, that's definitely one of the core purposes of these kiosks is public art.
We don't see it
Otherwise-
that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, you know, we asked you to make the recommendation, which is why this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right, and the public art will be the content, which is not pictured, by the way, because we don't have that piece.
And
yet.
that's purposeful, like you guys, like, we
Mhm.
had that conversation the last time you came that said that you're not gonna propose anything because we gotta do our work, like we gotta actually put this,
So
tell the story.
imagine the kiosk being a frame for the content.
Mhm.
It's a delivery system.
Yep.
It's, I see it more like infrastructure to be that delivery system for the content. And I think that CJ, when he designed these, also saw it that way. So we're following the design intent of the original design.
Yep.
I
Well,
mean,
then
pretty
my-
clearly with one of the legs skewed at an angle, it wasn't just a delivery system. Like he was trying to
Right.
be artistic.
Oh, no, it's,
Oh,
it is a very artistic.
It's gonna make it look nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so that my first also thought, even, you know, before I saw this, just the last time we talked about it,
Mhm.
I'll just give you my reaction,
Yeah.
right? So my first was, why are we messing around with wood? Why aren't we going to a metal or more durable? If this is really a delivery system for information and you want it to be maintenance-free and, you know, kept, why are we going to wood even to begin with and then,
That's why eBay.
ironwood or.
You know, two of the
Locust or
three
white oak.
parts of it are metal. So the
Yeah.
angle leg and the roof are both made out of
And
steel.
it's a vertical slatted wood, and it's not gonna see as much wear and tear as if it was on the roof of that.
And so if you look at the wood as sort of branding us with wood
Mm.
versus, we're not an iron lining or a logging, historically, our thing is wood.
Sure.
So, we combine both.
Well, and Ipe showed up on benches and trim and things within the highway project, so it is extant here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, any other questions? What do you think about this?
I think it's great.
Well, then I'll make a motion to approve the quote from Paul Nordland.
And I would second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, carries.
Thank you very much.
And, yeah, thank you.
So if there are some changes in terms of wood species or construction techniques that are not gonna be particularly noticeable and don't change the price, do you want it to come back, or do you just want it to happen?
No, I'd like to have that stay administrative.
Okay, and so that the discussion, you understand the factors are, if we can find a species of wood that we think is durable and low maintenance, but also not rainforesty, then we're gonna try to do that.
Environmental.
Yeah, forest
life.
Get as
The
many-
rainforest of Wisconsin would be fine. So that black
Rainforest
locust,
of
it would be
Wisconsin.
great.
Black locust is fine.
Yes.
Well, and everything grays out eventually, so it's all gonna look similar.
Even the green tree.
Right, right, but we never use that.
No, we
No, no, no.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Share the drawings.
Sure.
Hey, what's the schedule for coming back with content?
Oh, my God. Well, it's going to take us a long time to
The
do
content
that.
is the deal.
And we did not want to wait on getting the kiosks built because of the cost of the materials going up so fast. And we needed to be sure that there was going to be some place to place the content. None of us really want to have the kiosks placed without the content.
Mhm.
So we asked the city to maybe store the pieces before they're installed, so that we can do it in one big push.
You have space.
We do have quite a bit of space.
Right, and they can be outside.
They do live outside.
Yeah.
It's true.
But your question's a good one, because the content is an important part, and we want to bring it to fruition
Yep.
before we're any older and grayer.
There we go.
Mhm.
But it will take time.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
once we've got that
Thanks.
content, you'll be seeing it and have your voice in it as well. We'll probably have some public meetings as to what it will involve too, so.
Great.
So, there you go.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Can I bring up one quick item related somewhat to this whole piece before I forget for another
What's your email?
to discuss?
Okay.
Give it to
I'll
me.
wait till later.
Yeah, let's wait till the public is back.
No, let's do it now before you.
Yeah,
How about-
before he's paying attention. I have one quick item which I meant to bring up, and this reminded me. So we were walking up the street past the Voyager and the Bear, and of course we know the paint has failed after all the hard work Yarrow did to paint that on the Bear. And Pete just looked at me and made a very insightful comment and said, that's because that cedar tree is releasing off of there, and that's, the chemicals probably off the cedar tree is most likely the one making the Bear's paint fail, as opposed to the fact that the Voyager looks fine. Either way, it's something I think we need to deal with. I remember there was tons of confusion, because you'll notice it's right, if you walk, you'll see it's up high and above it, kind of.
Hmm.
And either way, we do need to address that. I know there was confusion last time. There was a lot of conversation for quite a while. Like, we need, different people. We need to deal with this. I don't know how it landed. I don't remember the details, but I think we should put that on again for something we should get cleaned up and dealt with. But if it's true, if his thought is right, it's that cedar. Then not only do we need to clean it up, but we need to figure out the cedar.
It is an astringent plant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a
Weird that
thought.
the it's this time and not before.
Yeah, but it was sitting there
Although
for
it
like
wasn't
50
in great
years.
shape before, so maybe it was.
Might have also been.
The Gunfeld Trail Association was, did the arranging for all that work before.
With Yarrow?
Um,
Okay.
Maybe we should do it this time.
So,
Certainly something to talk about.
Yeah.
yeah, I just know he made a real effort to get very good paints, and it's so apparent that one side is fine and the
Yeah.
other. And then when he said it, I went, oh yeah, look at, they're right up there.
Hmm.
And on top of
You may as well just keep going with your report.
Yeah,
Why not?
That's the next thing.
you've already started.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe
So that
I'm
was
done
item
then.
number 1.
Yeah, maybe I'm done then.
Really?
I
Whoa,
think so.
are you sure?
She's sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike's like, shut her up.
Okay, done.
Yeah, well, I've been hearing from people about street sweeping and about, typical spring things around the city, which is, those are things that I've relayed, along to who needs to hear about them, and haven't had a lot of meetings and all that stuff, so I don't have much to report.
No. And I just got a note from Amanda St. John at the library. She was saying that they opened mostly on the 9th, and they're putting out information about that, let people know that they are pretty much open. Still a little bit tricky, and they're getting some bids on the foundation and waterproofing, and they're going to come back to the trustees and tell us what they've found. As you know, it's flooded, and the last time they flooded was the 24th, or the weekend of the 23rd and 24th of April. They haven't flooded since, so that's great, but they've got to figure that out. It's just wanted us to know that, so.
There wasn't any like catalog damage or anything like that?
Um,
'Cause it's all
There-
water's on
Don't
the
think
floor.
so.
They don't think so. I mean, there's definitely moisture in the air, but they've done a great job of getting things up, but yeah. I mean, the hope is that there is not.
We had some commercial equipment in there doing dehumidification within a couple of days, so we think that nothing was damaged like that.
Fingers crossed.
But there's plenty of building damage that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't put it back together until we deal with the original issue, which is that the water was coming in. So we've got one quote, we'll be getting another one, bring it to the library board, they'll be able to move on it, but it'll still be, I would imagine, a few months before
Wow.
that gets scheduled, because it's hard to get a contractor to, even if they say yes, they'll be here in July, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's pretty good timing. if you can do
yeah, so that's been rough, and much appreciation to the library staff, but also the street staff and the utility staff and a whole bunch of other people who put in nights and weekend work, watching and monitoring the water removal equipment inside of that building
Mm.
when it was flooding.
Yeah,
that.
it's crazy.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Mike? Listen.
So tomorrow, I think we cleared this up last meeting, but just in case we didn't, tomorrow, Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Association's regular monthly meeting is being held here in Grand Marais. It'll be at the courthouse. You're not actually really invited to that, but you're welcome if you want to come. It's just going to be 4 hours of really difficult to digest conversations about electric utility industry, and it's not open to the public.
Okay.
They will be returning staff members from SIMPA to the Public Utilities Commission meeting for their regularly scheduled meeting in June. And you are invited to that, so that you can also, if you'd like, have a quick orientation on who SIMPA is, what our relationship is, what they do for us, what we do with them, that kind of stuff. So as more details arise, we will get that to you. But their regular meeting is the first Wednesday, which is the 1st of June at 3 o'clock, so.
And I'll be going to that meeting tomorrow morning to welcome them. That's
Awesome.
That's about it. I
Yeah.
won't be sticking around for too terribly long. So, anything else? All right. That pause was for Kim if she had anything, but she obviously doesn't.
Yeah, look at that. She's got that camera right on.
She's
All right.
so all right. Well, hearing no more business, then we are adjourned for the night. Thank you much.
Woo-hoo.
Well, good night, everybody.
Thanks,
Right.
Chris.
Bye. Thanks, Chris.